The rain fell in a steady drizzle, soaking into Scout Trasner's scales despite the protection of her cloaking suit. Her yellow eyes narrowed as she observed the gathering below. Humans, dressed in black garments, stood or knelt around a wooden box partially lowered into the softened earth. Their faces were contorted in expressions that Trasner's tactical manual identified as grief and mourning. Irrelevant emotional displays, according to Vexillian military doctrine. Trasner adjusted her position in the dripping foliage, careful not to disturb the branches. Her mission was clear: observe the funeral, confirm the presence of Admiral Harper, and transmit the attack signal once verified. General Vorkath had been explicit about the timing: strike when the humans were at their most vulnerable. Their attention diverted by their primitive death ritual. Death rituals are tactical weaknesses unique to lesser species, Vorkath had explained during the mission briefing aboard the command vessel. The Vexillian Empire recycles its dead for resource efficiency. We do not waste time on such sentimental absurdities. A small movement caught Trasner's attention. A human child, no more than 7 orbital cycles by her estimation, clutched a framed image to its chest. The child's face was streaked with water, not just the rain, but secretions from its ocular organs. The tactical manual called this crying. The child looked down at the wooden box with an intensity that made Trasner's inner membrane flicker unexpectedly. Pushing the distraction aside, Trasner focused her bio-enhanced vision on the cluster of uniformed humans standing at attention near the box. One of them matched the profile image of Admiral Janet Harper, architect of the human resistance that had cost the Empire 3 battle cruisers in the Proxima sector. Confirmation achieved. Trasner's clawed finger hovered over the transmitter. The attack signal would bring down 50 Vexillian warships on this unsuspecting gathering, capturing not only Harper but several other high-ranking human military officials attending what they believed was the funeral of Grand Admiral Wilson. Something made her hesitate. The child had moved to stand beside a tall female human, their hands intertwined. The larger human bent down, whispering something that made the small one nod while still clutching the frame. Trasner's enhanced hearing caught fragments. Would be proud, and always watching over you. A curious sensation crawled along Trasner's spine. The Vexillian Empire had conquered 17 star systems, recycled countless enemy combatants, and established dominance across 3 galactic arms. Yet here, on this wet planet, watching these fragile beings honor their dead. Trasner felt something unfamiliar stirring within her thoracic cavity. The sensation lasted precisely 3.7 seconds before her military training reasserted control. Trasner pressed the transmitter, sending the attack code to the fleet waiting beyond Earth's sensor range. The response was immediate. The overcast sky split as stealth fields disengaged, revealing the sleek, predatory forms of Vexillian attack vessels descending through the clouds. Their weapon ports glowed with charged stun cannons, designed to incapacitate rather than kill, Vexillian protocol for high-value targets. But something was wrong. The humans weren't panicking as expected. Instead, the uniformed ones, including Admiral Harper, were looking up with expressions that the tactical manual would classify as anticipation rather than fear. Harper raised her hand, and suddenly the ground around the funeral site opened up, revealing concealed defense turrets. The funeral attendees pulled weapons from beneath their black garments. The child and its caretaker were quickly escorted to an underground bunker that materialized where a tombstone had been moments before. "Defensive positions," a human voice commanded through amplification devices. "Infrared targeting active. Fire at will." Trasner watched in disbelief as the first wave of Vexillian ships erupted in flames, struck by weapons far more advanced than Empire intelligence had indicated. The lead destroyer, carrying General Vorkath himself, took a direct hit to its propulsion system and spiraled downward in a plume of blue-green fire. Her communication device crackled with frantic messages. "This is a trap. Retreat pattern Omega. Where are they getting these weapons? Empire vessel dominance is down. The realization hit Trasnar with the force of a gravitational anomaly. This was not a funeral. It was bait, and the Empire had taken it without question. Trasnar attempted to retreat from her observation post, but a precise energy pulse struck near her position, disabling her cloaking technology. She found herself surrounded by human soldiers, their weapons trained on her scaled form with unwavering precision. "Scout Trasnar of the Vexillian 3rd Reconnaissance Division," a voice stated in perfect Vexillian dialect. Admiral Harper stepped forward, her uniform immaculate despite the rain. "You're the only survivor of this ill-conceived invasion. The rest of your attack force has been neutralized." "Impossible," Trasnar hissed, her translator converting the sibilant sounds to human speech. "The Empire's forces are superior in every way," Harper interrupted. "Perhaps that was true before you decided to attack a species that values its dead enough to prepare elaborate traps around them." She gestured to the scene below, where the wooden coffin now stood open and empty. "Grand Admiral Wilson sends his regards. By the way, he's quite alive and currently directing the counterattack against your remaining ships in orbit." Trasnar's inner membranes flickered rapidly in confusion. "But the funeral was a performance." "Yes," Harper confirmed. "One we knew your Empire would find irresistible as a target. Your psychological profiles suggest a particular contempt for what you call death rituals. We simply used that against you." Trasnar looked around at the 47 human faces staring at her, not with hatred or fear, but with the calm confidence of predators who had successfully cornered their prey. "You have a choice now," Harper continued. "Surrender and accept our terms, or join your comrades in whatever afterlife the Vexillians don't believe in." For the first time in her military career, Scout Trasnar of the Vexillian Empire surrendered. The human detention facility surprised Trasnar. Instead of the torture chambers described in Empire propaganda, she was housed in a clean room with a view of Earth's natural landscape. The temperature was adjusted to match Vexillian comfort levels, and the food, while strange, was compatible with her digestive system. "We studied your physiology thoroughly," explained Dr. Abigail Moreno, the human scientist assigned to monitor Trasnar's health. "We've been preparing for this encounter for quite some time. Why not just terminate me?" Trasnar asked on the 3rd day of her captivity. "I am of no strategic value now." Dr. Moreno looked up from her data tablet with an expression Trasnar was learning to recognize as thoughtfulness. "That's not how we do things," she replied. "At least, not how we aspire to do things. Every sentient being has inherent value beyond their strategic usefulness." "Inefficient," Trasnar commented. "Perhaps," Moreno conceded. "But we've found that respecting life, even enemy life, yields better long-term outcomes than recycling it, as your Empire does." The concept was alien to Trasnar, yet something about it resonated with the strange feeling she had experienced watching the child at the funeral. Over the following weeks, she was introduced to other humans, including Marcus Okafor, a cultural exchange specialist who explained human customs with patient detail. "Funerals serve multiple purposes in our societies," Okafor told her during one session. "They allow us to honor the deceased, provide closure for the living, and reinforce community bonds through shared grief. The Empire views such practices as wasteful," Trasnar replied. "Our dead are processed within hours of cessation. Their nutrients and usable tissues are reclaimed for the benefit of continuing operations." "And how does that make individual Vexillians feel about their eventual death?" Okafor asked. The question caught Trasnar off guard. Vexillians didn't discuss feelings about death. Death was simply operational termination. "We do not consider it," she finally answered. "Everyone considers their mortality," Okafor said gently, "even if your culture doesn't provide the framework to express it." These conversations continued daily. interspersed with visits from Admiral Harper, who questioned Trasnar about Empire tactics and capabilities. Surprisingly, Harper also shared information about human defense systems, a practice Trasnar found baffling. "Why tell me about your planetary shield generators?" she asked after one such exchange. "Because understanding breeds respect," Harper answered, "and respect is the foundation of any lasting peace." "The Empire does not seek peace," Trasnar countered. "Only expansion and resource acquisition." "And how has that worked for you?" Harper asked, her expression unreadable. "Your invasion force is destroyed. Your Empire's most decorated general is dead. And you're having philosophical discussions with the enemy you were sent to conquer." Before Trasnar could formulate a response, an alert sounded. Harper accessed a communication device, her expression shifting to one of intense focus. "Bring it up on the main screen," she ordered. The wall of Trasnar's detention quarters transformed into a display showing a Vexillian transmission. War Minister Krelvax, his scales gleaming under ceremonial armor, addressed what appeared to be a broadcast to multiple species. "The Vexillian Empire acknowledges the loss of 94,612 military personnel in the failed Earth campaign," Krelvax stated, his normally imposing demeanor subdued. "This represents the largest single-day casualty count in Empire history. In light of this unprecedented situation, the High Council has authorized me to propose terms for cessation of hostilities and the establishment of diplomatic relations." Trasnar's inner membranes fluttered in shock. The Empire? Proposing diplomacy? Impossible. But the War Minister continued, "We request the return of surviving personnel, including Scout Trasnar, whose biosignature remains active according to our monitoring systems." Harper looked at Trasnar with raised eyebrows. "They're tracking you." "Standard procedure for all military personnel," Trasnar confirmed. "But I have never heard of the Empire initiating peace talks. It contradicts our most basic doctrine." "Doctrine can change when survival is at stake," Harper said. "Your Empire just learned that Earth is not the easy conquest they anticipated." She gestured to the screen. "How would you advise us to respond?" The question startled Trasnar. "You're asking for my counsel. I am your prisoner." "You're our guest," Harper corrected, "and potentially a bridge between our species." Over the next several days, Trasnar found herself in the unprecedented position of helping draft a response to her own government. The humans included her in strategy sessions, valued her insights about Vexillian psychology, and even modified their proposals based on her suggestions. During this time, Trasnar received an unexpected visitor, the child from the funeral, accompanied by a security detail and Admiral Harper. "This is Tessa," Harper introduced. "She asked to meet you." Tessa stared at Trasnar with undisguised curiosity, showing none of the fear the scout had expected from a human offspring. "Your eyes are like my cat's," the child observed, "but prettier." Trasnar blinked, unsure how to respond to this assessment. "Tessa's parents were scientists," Harper explained quietly. "They were on one of the research vessels your Empire destroyed in the initial incursion. She's been living with her aunt since then." The information caused an uncomfortable pressure in Trasnar's thoracic cavity. "Then why would she want to see me? I represent those who took her progenitors." "Why don't you ask her?" Harper suggested. Trasnar turned to the small human. "Why did you request this meeting, young one?" Tessa approached, stopping just outside the comfortable distance Vexillians preferred to maintain. "Admiral Harper said you don't have funerals where you come from, that you don't remember people who die." Her brow furrowed. "That seems really sad." The directness of the statement left Trasnar momentarily speechless. She had faced enemy fire, survived hazardous reconnaissance missions, and endured brutal training regimens without faltering. Yet this small human's simple observation penetrated defenses she hadn't known existed. "Our ways are different," Trasnar finally managed. "I brought you something," Tessa said, reaching into a pocket. She withdrew a small, transparent container filled with gray particles. "These are some of the ashes from the fake funeral. We were going to use them for another trap, but I thought maybe you should have them instead." Trasnar looked at Harper in confusion. "Symbolic ashes," Harper clarified. "Part of the funeral deception. No actual human remains." Tessa held out the container. "Now you can have something to remember, too," with hesitant movements. Trasnar accepted the bizarre gift. The container felt inexplicably heavy in her clawed hand. Thank you. Tessa, human." The child smiled, a facial expression Trasna was beginning to recognize as positive. "You're welcome, Trasna Lizard." That night, Trasna sat alone in her quarters, the container of symbolic ashes placed on the table before her. She found herself unable to follow the usual meditation protocols that preceded sleep cycles. Instead, her thoughts kept returning to the conversations with Dr. Moreno, Marcus Okafor, Admiral Harper, and the direct wisdom of a child named Tessa. For the first time, she considered what happened to Vexilian consciousness after death. The Empire taught that individual awareness was merely a biological function that ceased upon termination, the body becoming raw material for the continuation of the collective. But if that were true, why did she now feel this strange hollowness when thinking of her fallen comrades, reduced to component elements without acknowledgement of their existence? A communication alert interrupted her contemplation. The wall display activated, showing Admiral Harper. "Trasnar, we've received a new transmission from your government. I thought you should see it immediately." The screen shifted to show War Minister Krelvax again, but the background was different, a vast chamber filled with thousands of Vexilians standing in formation. "In recognition of the unprecedented losses suffered in the Earth campaign," Krelvax announced, "the High Council has approved an experimental ceremony based on intelligence gathered about human customs. We will acknowledge the identities of the fallen before processing." The camera panned across the chamber, where the names and rank insignias of the deceased Vexilian soldiers were being projected onto a massive wall. "This is revolutionary," Trasnar whispered. Knowing Harper could hear her, the Empire has never publicly identified the terminated before. The ceremony continued, with Krelvax reading a selection of names representing various divisions. When he finished, he made a final announcement that sent shockwaves through Trasna's entire being. "Furthermore, the High Council has authorized the establishment of a permanent diplomatic post on Earth, pending human approval. We request that Scout Trasnar, should she survive captivity, serve as our initial representative due to her direct experience with human culture." Harper's face reappeared on the screen. "Well, Scout Diplomat Trasnar, it seems you have a new assignment." 6 months later, Trasnar stood on the surface of Vex 12, the Vexilian homeworld, watching as humans and Vexilians gathered for an unprecedented event. The first official Vexilian memorial ceremony incorporating elements of human funeral traditions. The vast plains that had once served as recycling grounds were transformed. Instead of efficiency processors, the landscape now featured marker stones, each bearing the name and service record of a fallen soldier. Bioluminescent plants, a gift from Earth's botanical gardens, cast a gentle blue glow across the gathering. Admiral Harper stood beside Trasnar, representing Earth's diplomatic cause, Grand Admiral Wilson, whose death had served as bait for the trap that changed everything. Conversed with War Minister Krelvax about mutual defense strategies. Dr. Moreno and Marcus Okafor moved among the Vexilian civilians, explaining the significance of the memorial practices being introduced. And Tessa, now assigned as a cultural ambassador under Harper's supervision, demonstrated to young Vexilians how to place commemorative tokens at the base of the markers. "The first time is always the hardest," Harper said quietly to Trasnar, "acknowledging loss rather than just processing it." "Yes," Trasnar agreed. "But there is value in the acknowledgement. I understand that now." A hush fell over the gathering as Krelvax approached the central podium. The War Minister, once the embodiment of Vexillian military aggression, now wore ceremonial garments inscribed with the names of the fallen. "Today marks a transformation for the Vexillian people," he began. "For 10,000 cycles, we have expanded through conquest, viewing death as merely operational cessation, the dead as resources to be reclaimed. We believe this made us stronger than species who wasted energy on mourning rituals." He gestured toward the human delegation. "Our encounter with Earth has proven this assumption false. The humans' connection to their fallen gave them strength we did not anticipate. Their rituals of remembrance forged bonds that our efficiency could not break." Krelvax turned to face the assembled Vexillians. "Today, we honor our fallen not by recycling their bodies, but by preserving their names and deeds. We acknowledge that each life terminated represents more than material loss. It represents the loss of experience, perspective, and potential that can never be reclaimed." As he spoke, Vexillian technicians activated a new installation at the center of the memorial grounds. A column of light rose into the darkening sky, carrying within it thousands of tiny illuminated particles, a symbolic representation of the consciousness of the fallen, inspired by the human concept of the soul. Trasna felt a small hand slip into her clawed one. Tessa looked up at her with those expressive human eyes. "See?" the child whispered. "Now they'll always be remembered." "Yes," Trasna replied, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "Now they will." When the main ceremony concluded, Trasna was asked to address the gathering. She stood before the combined audience of humans and Vexillians, acutely aware of the historical significance of the moment. "I was sent to observe a human funeral as part of a military operation," she began. "I was taught that such rituals were weaknesses to be exploited. Instead, I discovered they were strengths I did not comprehend." She held up the small container of symbolic ashes that Tessa had given her months ago. "A human child gave me this gift, the concept of remembrance. She taught me that acknowledging what is lost does not weaken us. It connects us to something greater than ourselves." Trasna looked out at the faces, scaled and smooth, yellow-eyed and brown-eyed, former enemies now cautious allies. "The Empire has always pursued expansion to ensure our species' survival. But survival without meaning is merely existence. Through our contact with humanity, we have gained something more valuable than territories or resources. We have gained perspective." As twilight settled over the memorial grounds, human voices joined with Vexillian harmonic resonators in a blended requiem. The bioluminescent plants glowed brighter in response to the sound waves, creating patterns of light that danced across the marker stones. Trasna moved among the gathering, now comfortable in her role as cultural liaison. She overheard fragments of conversation between humans and Vexillians discussing theological concepts, comparing views on consciousness and what might exist beyond physical termination. "We still don't agree on everything," Admiral Harper commented as they watched a group of Vexillian youths learning a human memorial song from Tessa. "But disagreement without destruction is the beginning of true civilization. The Empire has much to learn," Trasna acknowledged. "As do I. As do we all," Harper replied. "That's rather the point of continuing to exist, isn't it? To learn and grow." As night fell completely, the memorial ceremony transformed into a celebration of life and continuity. The Vexillian elders, initially resistant to the concept of wasting resources on the dead, found themselves engaged in animated discussions about the nature of existence with human philosophers and theologians. War Minister Krelvax approached Trasna and Harper, his formal demeanor somewhat relaxed after months of diplomatic exchanges. "The High Council has reviewed the preliminary outcomes of this experimental ceremony," he announced. "They have determined that the psychological benefits to our population justify the resource allocation. Similar memorials will be established on all Vexillian worlds." "A wise decision," Harper replied diplomatically. Perhaps, Krelvax conceded. Although wisdom has never been our primary objective, efficiency has. Maybe true efficiency includes accounting for psychological and social factors, Trasnar suggested. Perhaps our previous calculations were incomplete. Krelvax regarded her with what might have been respect, a concept as new to Vexillian interaction as memorials themselves. Your perspective has been invaluable. Scout Trasnar, the Council has approved your permanent appointment as Cultural Ambassador to Earth. Should you accept? Trasnar felt a sensation she had come to recognize as pride. I accept with honor, War Minister. Later. As the gathering began to disperse, Trasnar found herself standing alone at the edge of the memorial grounds. The container of symbolic ashes from the human funeral deception weighed in her hand, a physical reminder of the journey that had brought her here. With deliberate movements, she opened the container and scattered the contents at the base of a newly planted earth tree, a symbol of the growing alliance between their species. As the particles settled into the soil of her homeworld, Trasnar realized that the sensation in her thoracic cavity was no longer uncomfortable. It felt like expansion, but not the kind the Empire had always pursued. This was internal growth, making room for new understandings. A fitting tribute, said a voice behind her. Dr. Moreno approached, her expression curious. May I ask what you were thinking just now? Trasnar considered the question with the thoroughness it deserved. I was thinking that death brings clarity to life. By acknowledging the end, we give meaning to what comes before it. Dr. Moreno smiled. That's a concept humans have been exploring for thousands of years. Then we have much to learn from your archives, Trasnar replied, and perhaps you have things to learn from ours as well. That's the idea behind cultural exchange. Moreno agreed. Though I admit, when we planned the trap at the fake funeral, none of us imagined it would lead to philosophical discussions on a Vexillian memorial ground. The most effective strategies often produce unexpected outcomes, Trasnar observed. As a scout, I was trained to identify patterns and predict behaviors. I failed to predict this. Failed? Or succeeded beyond the parameters of your mission? Moreno gestured to the gathering of humans and Vexillians, now illuminated by the soft glow of the memorial lights. You were sent to enable conquest. Instead, you helped forge alliance. Trasnar watched as Tessa demonstrated to a group of Vexillian children how to fold paper into the shape of earthbirds, another memorial tradition being shared between cultures. The children's inner membranes flickered with excitement as the paper constructs took flight, carrying small light sources that twinkled against the night sky. Perhaps this is what it means to truly honor the dead, Trasnar said softly, to create something new from their absence, something that would not have existed otherwise. As the last of the paper birds disappeared into the darkness, Trasnar felt a certainty settling into her consciousness. The attack during a human funeral had led to her species having one too, and in that shared acknowledgement of mortality, both civilizations had found something neither had possessed before, a recognition of life's value that transcended strategic objectives and resource calculations. It was, she decided, a worthy exchange, one worth preserving through the difficult years of alliance building ahead, one worth remembering, just as they now remembered their dead.